the fallen tycoon. The emergency room doors burst open as the paramedics wheeled in a man whose expensive suit was now torn and bloodied. The hospital staff exchanged knowing glances. They recognized Oliver Blackwood, the ruthless tech mogul whose company had revolutionized artificial intelligence while leaving a trail of crushed competitors. Multiple fractures, possible internal bleeding, car accident on Highway 9, the paramedic reported as they transferred him to the trauma team. 3 floors above, Priya Sharma was preparing for her night shift, tying her dark hair into a neat bun. At 32, she'd been a nurse for 8 years, the last 3 on the night shift at Memorial General. She preferred the quieter hours, finding a peaceful rhythm in the darkness when patients were most vulnerable, most human. "Priya, you've got a new admission in 307, Nurse Manager Delaney said, handing her a chart. "Oliver Blackwood. He's post-surgery from a car accident, multiple fractures, and apparently a complete nightmare. Already made 2 nurses cry." Priya accepted the chart with a small smile. "I've handled difficult patients before. Not like this one. He's that tech billionaire. Thinks the hospital should bow to his every whim." When Priya entered room 307, the monitors beeped steadily in the dimly lit space. Oliver Blackwood lay still, his angular face bruised, his right leg elevated and encased in a cast, his torso wrapped tightly. Despite his injuries, his expression remained hard even in sleep. "Mr. Blackwood," Priya checked his IV line. "I'm Priya, your night nurse." His eyes snapped open, sharp, assessing, cold. "The pain medication is inadequate," he said without preamble. "And this room is too small for someone who donated $3 million to this hospital's West Wing." "I'll check if we can adjust your medication," Priya replied calmly. "The room, however, is our best post-surgical accommodation. Get a Dr. Henderson, he knows who I am. Dr. Henderson isn't on call tonight. Dr. Patel is your attending physician until morning." Oliver's jaw tightened. "Then get the administrator." Instead of responding, Priya methodically checked his vitals. "Your blood pressure is elevated. That's likely contributing to your discomfort. Are you deaf?" I said. "Mr. Blackwood," Priya interrupted gently. "It's 11:30 p.m. Fighting the hospital won't speed your recovery. Right now your body needs rest more than it needs a larger room." Something in her steady gaze made him pause. For a moment, beneath the anger, Priya glimpsed something else. Fear, perhaps. Vulnerability. "Fine," he muttered finally, "but I expect Henderson here first thing tomorrow." As Priya adjusted his pillow, she noticed there were no flowers, no cards, not a single personal item in the room. Just a sleek laptop and phone on the side table, both damaged in the crash. "Is there anyone you'd like me to call?" she asked. "My assistant has handled all necessary communications." Priya nodded, recognizing the emptiness behind his words. As she dimmed the lights before leaving, she said softly, "The call button is right here if you need anything. I'll be back to check on you in an hour." For just a moment, Oliver's harsh expression faltered, as though her simple kindness had caught him off guard. Whispers beyond walls 3 weeks into Oliver's stay. The hospital corridors had developed an unofficial protocol. Approach room 307 with caution. Nurses swapped shifts to avoid him, and even the janitorial staff whispered about the tyrant in 307. But Priya remained steadfast, unfazed by his sharp tongue and demanding nature. Tonight she found him awake at 2 a.m., staring out the window at the city lights. "Pain keeping you up?" she asked, checking his medication chart. "Just bored of these 4 walls," he replied, his voice lacking its usual edge. The weeks of immobility had softened something in him, or perhaps it was simply exhaustion. "I brought something that might help." Priya pulled a dog-eared paperback from her pocket. "Nothing fancy, just a mystery novel I finished last week." Oliver eyed it suspiciously. "I have reports to read on my tablet. More work?" At 2 a.m., Priya placed the book on his nightstand. Sometimes our minds need different nourishment. To her surprise, he didn't argue. Instead, he asked, "Why are you always here?" "It's always you on the night shift. I requested to maintain continuity of care for you," she said simply. "Why? I'm hardly your easiest patient." Priya checked his leg cast, her movements efficient yet gentle. "The difficult ones often need the most consistency." A heavy silence filled the room before Oliver spoke again. "My driver died in the accident." His voice was flat, but Priya caught the undercurrent of guilt. "James, he worked for me for 11 years. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "Were you close?" "Close?" Oliver considered the word as if it were foreign. He knew how I took my coffee and which routes avoided traffic. I knew he had a family. Wife, 2 daughters. He swallowed hard. I was on a call when it happened. Important merger. I didn't even notice the truck until James swerved to take the impact on his side. Priya sat in the chair beside his bed, crossing a boundary she usually maintained. That's a heavy burden to carry. The company arranged for his funeral. I've set up college funds for his daughters. Oliver's voice turned bitter. Money fixes everything, right? It helps with practical matters, Priya acknowledged. But grief needs different medicine. Something in her tone made Oliver look at her more closely. You sound like you know. My husband died 3 years ago. Cancer. She rarely shared this with patients, but something about Oliver's isolated pain called to her. No amount of medical knowledge could save him. For the first time, Oliver's expression held no arrogance, no impatience, just human recognition of shared loss. The next night, Priya found him reading her mystery novel. The night after, he asked her opinion on the plot twist. Gradually, their 2 a.m. conversation stretched longer. He spoke of his childhood in foster care, his ruthless climb through the tech industry. She shared stories of her family in Mumbai, her decision to become a nurse after her mother's illness. Nurse Delaney noticed the change in their difficult patient and in Priya. You're spending too much time in 307, she warned one morning as Priya was ending her shift. 20 extra minutes last night, 35 the night before. He's opening up. It's therapeutic for his recovery. It's unprofessional, Delaney countered, and people are talking. A nurse getting too attached to a billionaire patient? It looks bad, Priya. I'm providing care, Priya insisted. That's all. But later that week, when she brought homemade chai after Oliver complained about the hospital tea, she found Dr. Patel examining his healing fractures. Recovery's progressing well, Dr. Patel said, then added with a raised eyebrow, I hear you've been getting special treatment from our night staff. Oliver's eyes met Priya's across the room, and in that moment, both realized their quiet nighttime world had become subject to hospital scrutiny, and neither was prepared for what that might mean. The warning storm, Nurse Sharma. Please report to administration. The overhead page echoed through the hospital corridor as Priya finished checking a patient's vitals. She felt her stomach tighten, knowing exactly what this summons meant. Hospital Director Patricia Winters sat behind her desk, personnel file open before her. Beside her sat head nurse Delaney, her expression grave. Sit down, Priya. Director Winters gestured to the empty chair. We need to discuss your conduct regarding patient Oliver Blackwood. Priya straightened her shoulders. I've provided him with attentive care. You've provided far more than that, Delaney interjected. Extended conversations during night shifts. Personal items brought from home. Yesterday's security footage shows you entering his room with outside food. Homemade soup, Priya admitted. He hasn't been eating the hospital meals, Director Winters sighed. Priya, you're one of our best nurses. Your patient satisfaction scores are exemplary. But this, she tapped a document, this crosses professional boundaries. With all due respect, Priya said carefully, Mr. Blackwood has no family support. His recovery has accelerated since he began engaging more. The human connection is part of healing. The human connection is precisely the issue, Director Winters countered. We've received complaints from other staff members about preferential treatment. There are even rumors. Priya's voice rose slightly. I've done nothing inappropriate. Intent doesn't matter here, Delaney said. Perception does. He's a high-profile patient with tremendous wealth and influence. You're a night nurse spending unusual amounts of time with him. Director Winters slid a formal warning letter across the desk. Consider this your first and only warning. No more extended visits. No outside food. Chart your interactions meticulously. Another violation will result in suspension. The warning letter felt heavy in Priya's hands as she left the office. Her shift wouldn't start for hours, but rather than going home, she found herself in the hospital garden, trying to make sense of her feelings. Was she truly crossing a line? Or was the hospital more concerned with appearances than actual patient care? Meanwhile, in room 307, Oliver was undergoing physical therapy. Pushing himself harder than recommended, determination etched on his face. Easy there, Mr. Blackwood, the therapist cautioned. Recovery isn't a race. "I've wasted enough time in this bed," he replied sharply, but without his former venom. Weeks of forced stillness had changed him. Or perhaps it was something else. Something that arrived each night with quiet footsteps and gentle hands. When therapy ended, he found himself watching the clock, waiting for the night shift to begin. For her, the realization disturbed him. In his world, people were assets or obstacles, not whatever Priya was becoming. His phone rang. Another executive demanding decisions. "The Singapore deal is stalling," his CFO reported. "They need reassurance from you personally." A month ago, Oliver would have immediately arranged a video call, regardless of time zones or his own condition. Now he hesitated. "Schedule it for tomorrow," he said instead, "and send the latest projections to my tablet." After ending the call, he picked up the mystery novel, finished days ago but still on his nightstand. From between its pages, he withdrew a small photograph that had fallen from Priya's pocket during one of her visits. A smiling Priya stood beside a man with kind eyes, both against a backdrop of Mumbai's coastline. Her husband, he presumed. The one she'd lost? Oliver studied the genuine happiness in their faces, a sensation like envy. No, longing washing over him. In his 42 years, had he ever smiled like that? Had anyone ever looked at him with such unguarded affection? When the night shift began, it wasn't Priya who entered his room but a nurse he'd never seen before. "Where's Nurse Sharma?" he demanded. "I'm covering her patients tonight," the nurse replied professionally. "I'm Nurse Thomas. I want my regular nurse. I have all your information and care requirements, Mr. Blackwood. Now, let's check those vitals." Oliver fell into a cold silence as the stranger efficiently went about Priya's usual tasks. When Nurse Thomas left, he picked up his phone and did something unprecedented. He called the hospital administration directly. "This is Oliver Blackwood," he said when Director Winters answered. "I want to know why my primary night nurse has been reassigned." The director's hesitation told him everything. "Staff assignments are an internal matter, Mr. Blackwood. I assure you, you'll receive excellent care." "I don't want excellent care," he said, surprising himself with the raw honesty in his voice. "I want Priya Sharma." Shattered barriers, Priya stood in the rain outside Memorial General, clutching the suspension notice that Director Winters had handed her an hour ago. The official reason: violation of professional boundaries and failure to maintain appropriate patient-caregiver relationship. The real reason had arrived in a storm yesterday morning. Oliver Blackwood had threatened to withdraw his foundation's annual donation unless Priya was reinstated as his nurse. His attempt to help had backfired spectacularly, giving the administration exactly what they feared: evidence of inappropriate influence. 2-week suspension, pending review, Director Winters had said, not unkindly. "Priya, you're an excellent nurse, but this situation has become untenable." Now raindrops mingled with tears as Priya walked away from the hospital that had been her second home. 8 years of dedicated service reduced to a personnel issue. She hadn't even been allowed to say goodbye to her patients, to him. Inside room 307, Oliver was seething. The hospital administrator had just informed him that Nurse Sharma was no longer assigned to the floor, carefully omitting the suspension. "What did you do?" Oliver demanded, his old ruthlessness surfacing. "Mr. Blackwood, we've assigned our most experienced night staff to ensure your continued recovery," the administrator assured him. "You misunderstood my question." Oliver's voice dropped dangerously. "What did you do to Nurse Sharma?" When the administrator hesitated, Oliver knew. "You punished her because of me. Staff assignments are confidential personnel matters. Get out." Oliver cut him off. "And send Dr. Patel in. Now." When Dr. Patel arrived 30 minutes later, Oliver was sitting on the edge of his bed, fully dressed in clothes his assistant had delivered days ago. "I'm checking myself out," he announced. Dr. Patel frowned. "You still need at least another week of monitored recovery and physical therapy. I'll hire private care." Oliver was already tapping on his phone. "Prepare the discharge papers." "Against medical advice, yes, I'll sign whatever waivers you need." Dr. Patel studied him carefully. "This is about Nurse Sharma, isn't it?" Oliver's fingers stilled on his phone. For weeks he had shared more with Priya than he had with anyone in years, perhaps ever. Yet in trying to wield his influence on her behalf, he had only caused harm. "What happened to her?" he asked quietly. Dr. Patel hesitated, then sighed. "Suspended. 2 weeks, possibly longer." The familiar cold fury rose in Oliver, the same calculating anger that had built his empire. But this time it wasn't directed at competitors or underperforming executives. It was aimed at himself. 3 hours later, Oliver's private car delivered him to his penthouse overlooking the city. The same city where Priya was somewhere, paying the price for his arrogance. "Welcome home, sir," his new assistant Garrett greeted him. "I've arranged for a private physical therapist to begin tomorrow. Your calendar has been cleared for 2 weeks as requested." Oliver nodded absently, staring out at the skyline. The opulent space that had once represented his success now felt hollow. "There's something else I need you to do," he said finally. "Find Nurse Priya Sharma's address, sir." "Discreetly, Garrett. And then I need you to research something else. Hospital policies on patient-staff relationships after discharge." That night, Oliver stood on his balcony, the city lights blurring through the rain. For the first time in weeks, there was no gentle voice asking about his pain levels, no quiet conversation in the pre-dawn hours. The absence felt physical, an ache deeper than his healing bones. In her small apartment across town, Priya sat curled on her couch, a cup of untouched tea growing cold beside her. Her phone displayed a dozen supportive messages from colleagues, but none could erase the sense of professional failure. She had known the boundaries, had crossed them anyway. Yet even now, facing the consequences, she couldn't bring herself to regret the night spent talking with Oliver, watching the hard shell around him slowly crack open to reveal the wounded, remarkable man beneath. A knock at her door startled her. It was nearly midnight, the rain still drumming against her windows. Through the peephole she saw a figure she recognized instantly, leaning heavily on a cane, rainwater dripping from his expensive coat. Priya's heart hammered as she opened the door. "Oliver, you shouldn't be, you're still recovering." "I had to find you," he said simply, "because this time I'm the one who needs healing." Beyond wealth's shadow, Priya stood frozen in her doorway, the reality of Oliver Blackwood, soaked from the rain, leaning on a cane, colliding with the professional boundaries she'd already shattered. "You shouldn't be here," she said, even as she stepped aside to let him in. Oliver limped past her, rainwater dripping onto her modest entryway. The penthouse billionaire looked strangely at home in her small apartment, with its mismatched furniture and walls adorned with photographs from her life in India. "You're right," he agreed, turning to face her. "I shouldn't be here. I should still be in the hospital. You should still be my nurse. Neither of those things is true because of me." Priya closed the door but maintained her distance. "The suspension was my responsibility. I knew the rules." "Rules," Oliver scoffed. "I've spent my life bending rules to my advantage. But when I tried to help you," he ran a hand through his wet hair, "I made it worse." The vulnerability in his voice drew her closer. "You need to sit. Your leg—" "My leg is fine. It's everything else that's broken." His eyes met hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. "Do you know what I realized when they told me you were gone? That in 6 weeks of lying in that hospital bed, the only time I felt truly alive was during those nights talking with you." Priya sank onto her couch, emotional and professional boundaries blurring beyond recognition. "Oliver, I lost my job because you showed kindness to someone who didn't deserve it," he finished. "I called the hospital board before coming here. Your suspension has been lifted." Her eyes widened. "What did you do?" "Nothing dramatic. Just made them see reason." He carefully lowered himself to sit beside her. "They're offering you your position back with an apology." "No conditions." "And if I don't want to go back?" The question hung between them, heavy with implications. "Then you have options," Oliver said quietly. "I've spent my life accumulating wealth and power, thinking they were the measure of success. It took losing everything, mobility, control, dignity, to see how empty my life was. The only real connection I've felt in years was with someone who saw past all that." Priya's training had taught her to recognize shock, trauma, gratitude, and patience, emotions that could be mistaken for deeper feelings. "Oliver, you've been through a traumatic experience. It's natural to form attachments to caregivers." A smile touched his lips. "Always the professional, even now." He reached for her hand, his touch tentative, so different from the demanding patient who had arrived at the hospital. "I've had 6 weeks to analyze this, Priya. This isn't gratitude or trauma bonding or whatever clinical term you're thinking of." "Then what is it?" A beginning, he said simply. If you want it to be. Dawn was breaking when they finally stopped talking, having traced the delicate path from what was to what could be. Oliver told her of his plans to restructure his company, to establish a foundation in his driver James's name. Priya spoke of her dream to open a community clinic, of her hesitation to trust again after loss. I should go, Oliver said reluctantly as sunlight filtered through her curtains. Your neighbors will talk, Priya smiled. Let them. I've already been suspended once this week. At her door, he turned back. Have dinner with me tomorrow. Not as a patient, not as a nurse. Just two people who found each other in the most unlikely place. Yes, she said, but not at some exclusive restaurant where you can buy privacy. Somewhere real. I know just the place. His smile reached his eyes, transforming his face into something younger, lighter. There's a small Indian restaurant my driver James used to recommend. He said it reminded him of home. As Oliver's car pulled away, Priya stood in her doorway watching. The suspension, the hospital politics, none of it seemed to matter anymore. What lay ahead was uncharted territory, frightening and exhilarating. 6 months later, the gossip had faded. Priya had returned to Memorial General, but on her terms, part-time while pursuing a master's degree in public health, funded by the Blackwood Foundation's new healthcare initiative. Oliver had stepped back from daily operations at his company, focusing instead on the foundation and, to everyone's shock, learning to cook Indian cuisine under Priya's patient instruction. On the anniversary of his accident, they returned to the hospital, not as patient and nurse but as donors, breaking ground on a new family support wing for long-term patients. You changed me, Oliver told her that night as they walked through the garden where she had once sat holding her suspension notice. When I was at my worst, you saw something worth saving. I saw you, Priya said simply, reaching for his hand. Not the wealth, not the power, just you. Behind them, construction lights illuminated the sign for the new wing, the James Wilson Family Center, named for the driver, whose sacrifice had set everything in motion. Oliver pulled Priya close, the cane long since discarded. I came to you that night offering to fix your career, thinking that's what mattered most. I was still trying to solve problems with money. And now? She asked, tilting her face to his. Now I know better, he said softly. Some things can't be bought or fixed or arranged. They can only be given freely. He touched her cheek. Like the way you gave me care when I deserved none. Like the way I'm giving you my heart now. Under the stars, surrounded by the hospital where their impossible story began, they embraced a billionaire and a nurse who had risked everything, finding in each other's arms the true meaning of wealth.